Guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to talk about what I am going to put in my 2024 double palette. Well, it's a single box, but I bought it specifically because it has 2 rows of 24, and then it actually has 4 bonus pans, so that you can actually put in an extra one here. Um, but this is 24 on each side, and then we have some extra space for some other things. So basically, I'm going to use two American brands, not by design, but just because they're the ones that I've been interested to try for 2024. And let's talk about them. And let's talk about what you might pick. We already talked about this Grabby palette, which actually also has a whole bunch of metallics. Um, I'll say for a lot of, to me, you may be different, but metallics are kind of special purpose. I don't really use them that much. I probably use the gold family like these the most. Um, but they're not in my everyday palette. Ditto for neons. The pearlescents in this palette really behave more don't aren't really particularly pearlescent. Anyway, we're not so much talking about this one as the one I'm going to build, but I wanted to show you that there are some options if you want to have less colors than this, because and especially if you want to mix your own colors and work on that. I'll give you my thoughts. Obviously, palettes are kind of an individual thing, so I mean, it's some of it comes down to what you personally like. If you caught the video before this, we kind of walked through this pink color and some of the other shades you could get out of it. As you can see, like, it's really interesting to me that the shades with black mixed in really have a much more magenta, like, they really emphasize the purpley nature of the paint, at least to my eye. Um, anyway, and we do have our friendly color wheel, if we need to chat about what things you might want to put in your palette. This is a palette I made a couple years ago. This one is specifically designed for color mixing, and basically, this is a 12 color palette. This one I just did this in the middle here are these 2 colors together. So the purpose of this palette is the top row and bottom row are basically directly across from each other on the color wheel. So, for example, if we look at the yellow here, it is directly across from blue. It's a very dark purpley sort of it's basically it's a phthalo blue, which is the green shade, so it's leaning much more in this direction. Oh, you can't see my hand, sorry. It's leaning kind of this way around the color wheel, so it's more like here, but, and then Hansa Yellow Medium, which is what this guy is a pretty slightly cool yellow, so that's why, this is basically a direct blue and a direct yellow. And then they go on. You wind up with sort of a cyan blue and an orange, and then you have like a true red, which is right across from cyan, that's the phthalo blue. This is ultramarine blue. I think this one is phthalo blue. Oh, I lied. This is ultramarine violet across from the yellow. I should have known that because purple or violet is the direct complement of yellow. But then as you move this way, you move from yellow towards red. If you move this way, you move towards blue to the greens. And these are really neat because you're going to get a very pure sort of neutral color in the middle because they're across the color wheel from each other. Pretty much, if you mix, say, let's take a look at this and say, mix yellow and like a magenta, because this magenta isn't directly across from the color wheel, you're going to have some essentially you're going to have some color left over, so this is going to tint that resulting neutral in sort of a red direction. I think when I'm coming up with the palettes that I like to use, actually, let me I think I have some examples of some of my watercolors. And I'm a pretty beginner watercolorist, but I thought I'd show you some of the stuff I worked on. This is a fun little planet study. This was mostly just sort of playing with a new brush to work on some brush techniques. This one, these are some actual landscapes I did. Actually, looking out from summer place we stayed in the summer, and then we get into these are just some various leaves. Ignore the cat who is making noise. Then this was sort of some leaves with some splatter. And then this is sort of a combination of techniques. It's sort of a very loose lily pad and a very loose leaf. But then this branch, I really like how the shading on this actually came out. Is there like I like how you can see all the layering. And then we have some larger versions of looking out basically across the lake towards the trees. Oops, that's upside down. There we go. That's better. So across the lake towards the trees with sort of a very stormy kind of sky. But I like painting nature a lot, so I tend to like to have a lot of neutrals in my palette. Depending on what you do, you may or may not care about that. Um, I would say the more you paint things like florals that don't really have a ton of neutrals necessarily, the more you might want to opt more towards vibrant colors. And I grabbed the core book because I have owned core paints. These are made by Golden, who is one of my favorite brands. They're an American brand and they have really good the reason I like Golden is they have really good customer service. So like they actually have artists who do their customer service usually. So you can ask specific questions. And if you get their acrylic swatch card, they actually paint the actual paints on them. These are reproductions via printer for the watercolor, unfortunately. But that's one reason that it's important to swatch your own stuff because obviously these are reproductions of watercolor painted essentially on a laser printer, right? So these aren't going to be quite the same. But I tend to like a lot of these kind of colors sort of in this row here because I really like the neutrals. I tend to use a lot of I tend to use a lot of burnt umber and burnt sienna and um some of the more like this Venetian red, like sort of the reds derived from iron oxide, aka rust, are pretty nice. I mean, these are all very natural colors, but then you can take these natural colors and add them to like some of your more vibrant colors and get a lot of interesting stuff. So for my palette, I don't know why there's a Simon Says stamp sticker on here, but anyway. So I'm going to be using Core for one half of it, and then I'm going to use Daniel Smith like these guys for the other half. And I'm probably going to start with a palette like this, which is called a split primary because you basically have a very magenta-y red and you have sort of a warmer red. So you have a warm and cool version of each color, which gives you a lot of options when it comes to the mixing of the colors. I tend to not use a lot of reds and yellows, so I tend to just stick with two reds, two yellows, maybe an orange, maybe a pink, and then spend a lot more time picking out neutrals. But there are always interesting colors to try, so, I don't know if I'll quite stick to that, but I will probably start doing more exercises, but we will circle back probably once I swatch out my whole resulting palette so we can just sort of talk through it. So, anyway, thanks for checking this out, and I will talk to you guys later.